Everybody's got cameras. We have people walking down the street at 2 or 3 in the morning, flipping door handle. The challenge for us is when it's dark out, you're going to see us coming a mile away regardless. But if we just lock the doors. The other thing that happened is getting people to prosecute. We contacted 3 homeless individuals in an abandoned building last week. We called the owner, asked him, hey, we need you to arrest him for trespassing. Nope, just let him go. Just tell him not to come back. Now, what kind of message does that send for us? It's very challenging. They're going to come back, and that's how individuals start becoming entrenched in these locations. We need the owner to cooperate. My wife was shopping in a store here, and there's a homeless individual riding around, eating as he goes, and we're trying to get the store to prosecute. A lot of corporations don't want to do it, either for a variety of reasons, but we need to send a message that if you're going to do crime, we need people to be involved and be willing to stand up and say, hey, I'll arrest them. I'll sign a private person's arrest. We've been doing citywide meetings. This problem impacts every department in the city, every single department. So the city manager's been chairing meetings. We get together, we talk. We talk every quarter or earlier as needed. Lately, it's been about every few weeks, and we talk about what we can do, what services we can do, and one of the that's how we got the security company came out of one of those meetings. Proactive enforcement of the laws. We're out writing people, hey, if you're at the end of a off ramp and you're out there, there's a vehicle code violation. If we see you, if we have some, you're going to get a ticket. That's just the way it is. We want to enforce laws. We dealt with an individual 3 days in a row. We had one individual that was at a business that was causing problems, moved him on. We ended up citing him today for possession of a shopping cart and no bike license. Now, that may sound a little, oh, really? Don't you have better things to do? But at the end of the day, that's a shopping cart from a business here in Orange. And the bicycle license, and I skipped over that. I want to go back to that. One of the biggest thefts that they're having are bikes. We're doing right now for the next 2 months for free. If you come down to the police department, there's actually a municipal code that says you have to have a bike license, but we'll cut you some slack for not having it. We'll put a sticker on for free. We fill out your information. So if we contact an individual with a bike frame that has that sticker, we can arrest them for possession of stolen property. The other thing we've been doing is we have a bait bike. So we have a bicycle that we put out there that's got some technology on it. And when somebody comes up and steals it, we put a lock on it. We end up tracking them down. We had to go out because of the legislation. We had to spend $1,100 on a bike because it's now $950 for a felony. It used to be $401. It's now $950 for grand theft to be a felony. So we went out that. We had to meet with the DA to make sure we're going to get a felony prosecution or a felony filing on it. And we put it out there. I will tell you, every person, 99.9% of the people that we have arrested, number one, has had prior arrest records, and they're transient. They are getting wise to it now. People are out there deciding, okay, which one is it? They're kind of rolling the dice to see which one's the police bike and which isn't. But we're constantly doing it, and it's just a way for us to try to reduce crime. I say Public Works, they're in here, and the city attorney. The city attorney was able to get a restraining order for 2 individuals at the library. Library is a public place. You're allowed to be in there. But these 2 individuals on separate occasions started causing problems, inappropriate behavior, and he was able to get restraining orders to keep them out of the library. So, as I said, it's a citywide approach. Related calls for service. You may not be able to read it. Since January to August 31, these are underreported. I give very conservative numbers. It's easier to do it that way. 3,000 calls for service. That's somebody picking up the phone. It doesn't include what we call self-initiated calls for service when a police officer goes out and makes contact with somebody. This is just somebody coming and calling the police department on a transit-related call. August went up. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think over the past several months, the awareness level has gone up, so people are more willing to call us. And as I stated to a couple of people, just so you know, yesterday, 75% of our calls for service on day watch yesterday, and day watch is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 75% were homeless related. So that's the impact on us. So you'll hear sometimes, well, I hear, hey, what took you so long to get here? Why are you, what's going on? Well, that's the reason. We're getting impacted. Transit-related crimes. Excuse me 1 second. I did some total numbers to make it over 320 transit-related crimes in the city, January to August. And we made 246 arrests. The crimes and the arrests are mostly drug and alcohol related. So as I talked about, what are we doing with the city of Orange? Take a look at this tent, and this is the thing we're dealing with. Oh, no trespassing. And it's funny, the courts have recognized that tent. That's his house. That's just like your house, my house. We just can't go busting in. We need exigent circumstances, or we need a search warrant to go in there. So it's for us it can be very frustrating at times. Public Works, Community Services. Again, everybody's involved in trying to do something about this problem. Parks, again, they're not citing for camping on a riverbed. We're citing for camping in our parks. We're citing them for being in the parks after hours. Everybody, regardless of who you are, you can't be in a park after hours. Boom, you get a ticket. I will say that we do issue them tickets. They don't go to jail right away, but usually what happens, they end up missing their court date. They get a couple of more tickets and ends up going to warrant, so we're able to arrest them and take them to county jail for that.
Chief, can I step in for a second? In relation to parks, what is defined as camping is someone who pitches a tent. So if someone's laying on a blanket in a park, that's just leisurely laying in a park. When we have cited for camping is when someone actually pitches a tent and does not move after our first contact with them. I wanted to clarify that. We've been very proactive in that matter.
Okay, I'm going to transition. So this is our heart team. So I want to go over these stats because it's very impactful, and for us it kind of telltale. So the heart teams had 851 contacts where they offered resources to transients. 5 people accepted them. In addition, they had 19 people lodged for 5150. 5150 is a mental health hold. They've had 61 follow-ups to patrol for 5150s. So for us, that's good. They're going up. Patrol makes contact. The heart team, they'll call the heart team. They'll go alleviate that patrol officer, and that officer can go back to handling calls for service, and the heart team can take care of this. 366 field interview cards. So field interview card, we call it an FI card. Just a card that would contact you depending, and we just write down your information, who you are, where do you live, what are you doing here, have you ever been arrested before? It's just an informational card that we have on you. Bike teams had 9 arrests for trespassing in the creek, and since April, the bike teams made about 60 arrests, so they're just not out there providing resources. They're conducting enforcement when appropriate and when needed. Prop 57, that went into effect August 1st. Lower jail population. A lot of our prisons now, county jail, there's vacancy, they're only about 75% full. There's vacancies. Some of them are looking, jails, can we keep them open? So it's challenging. I know that, I'll get to my next thing and I'll tell you that. In closing, we're engaging the homeless. We're offering resources. A lot of them don't want resources. We're arresting them when we can. As I just told you, it's very challenging. Get a ticket, what do you do? We can't take them to jail. It's challenging. It's frustrating. We're supporting the county. We're working together as a city department. Proactive law enforcement. One thing that we're working on, I think the city manager is going to mention it earlier, is they start moving people off the riverbed. Where are they going to go? So what we've been doing is some of our directed patrol officers assigned to work adjacent to the businesses and residences close to the riverbed. We're going to start adding additional officers. That's going to cost some money, but it's going to, pretty confident, it's going to be taken care of. At the end of the day, that's what we need to do. So we're going to be putting more officers out there to try to stem that flow and keep them from coming into the city of Orange in a legal, moral, and ethical manner. Community participation in legislation. 2 weeks, I think, we got 15,000 signatures to move the people off the riverbed. What a movement. How about getting hold of your state senator, talking to county, talking to people to change some of these laws? A lot of this is not going to, unfortunately, occur at the city level. It occurs above county, state, and federal. That's the challenge. We need to get people involved in dealing with their state and government representatives. And then, again, like I said, we'll do our part. You have my word that the men and women in the Orange Police Department do the best we can. Thank you.
That concludes the staff recommendations up until I turn over to the city attorney to address the council's request on issues related to our codes.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. For your direction, I've taken a review of city codes, and honestly, the bottom line at the end of it, I think code-wise, we're okay. There's one code that I will offer up if council wanted to add, but basically, again, we're not going to, as the chief said, we're not going to arrest and legislate our way out of this problem. But as far as codes go, I reviewed our municipal code along with neighboring cities and a number of cities throughout the state to see if we're missing something. I'm looking through there, especially in the area of what we call the quality of life kind of codes, and most of those deal with transit and homeless type issues. And we all have basically the same type of ordinances. As Chief mentioned, we have our camping ordinance, which we do utilize within our parks and other areas throughout the city. However, one of the things that I've instructed the police department to do over the years, and this is because of some court rulings that have come down, is they want to make sure that when they go cite someone for camping, they check with the local shelters to see if there was available bed last night, will they expect any bed available tonight, and include that in the reports. One of the reasons for that is because the courts have upheld a necessity defense to those charges in court. Necessity being a person claiming that I have to sleep there because I have nowhere else to sleep. Therefore, that's the only place I could sleep. And so in order to try to defeat that defense, we've asked the police department to take those steps. We have the issues the chief pointed out with property. Those are some of the, if you look through the cases, especially in federal courts, those are what most of the cases have really focused on more than anything is the taking of property. Courts have found that to be illegal seizure and deprivation of due process when you take some of the property, don't give them a chance to get it back first or get it back later. And that's why we do the posting, the 24-hour posting, and then we hold it for 90 days. It has a lot of work, a lot of time-consuming effort that all of our departments have to go through to do that. But it's a necessity that we need to go through to try to protect us in the end. Part of my job is to try to make sure we have laws to enforce, but also it's to make sure we do it in a manner that also hopefully keeps us protected later on from lawsuits also. It's not that we are afraid of lawsuits, but just if you, as a lawyer, I have to deal with court precedent. When you look at the courts, especially federal courts, these are cases that have already been decided, and the court said these are the things you need to do. We can all say that a judge is ridiculous, they're crazy, what can they do? But the fact is, that is the law, and that, especially me as a city attorney, that's something I have to deal with. We can all disagree with it all we want, and unfortunately that is the law. So those are the things we're doing, those things I've instructed the police department. One ordinance that I did come across in several cities, in fact I think Mission Viejo is in the middle of adopting it right now, and I has one already. San Luis Obispo is another one I saw that has a good one, is what's termed an aggressive solicitation ordinance. So we cannot, it is not illegal if someone, as you're walking into 7-Eleven, asks you for $1. They can do that. We can't stop that. However, if they ask, you say no, and they grab you, hey, come on, give me that $1. Or they follow you in the store, or they stand in your way before you get in. That would be something that falls in the definition of aggressive solicitation. And that is something that I believe the law so far is in our favor of being able to prevent and make that a crime. The problem with that, again, though, the chief mentioned earlier with that business owner and people living there, is we need the cooperation of the people who are the victims. These crimes require a victim. The police department cannot come along later on and say, I heard you did this earlier, and arrest the person for aggressive panhandling or solicitation later. We need people to be victims. We need you to be there for the police department, to sign and say, I am willing to testify later that this occurred to me, and I'm a victim of this crime. Same thing with the trespassing goes. We need business owners, excuse me, to be the victims. We need them to be able to step up and say, okay, I've had enough of this too. my customers have had enough of this, and I'm willing to step up and sign a private person's arrest form and tell the police officers to take this person to jail. And some of that, we're going to need folks like you to tell your business owners that's what you want. When you walk into a store and you're confronted by someone, you need to go in that store and tell them what happened and tell them you don't like that happening from their store. They need to call the police and they need to be a victim. When the police come, they need to be willing to sign that form and do something about it. The police officer does not have the power to tell that person to get away from that store. That is not illegal for someone to be in front of that store and ask for $1. It's not illegal for that person to be in front of that store and sit on the curb all day. We cannot legislate that away. The courts have said that is not illegal. We need people to be victims at times, and they can do things like that. There are trespass laws that can be enforced, but we need victims. The police department is not the victim. The city of Orange is not the victim. Individuals are the victims. And that's what we need. And there are police officers out there who are going to be more than willing to take that report, take the action necessary, but they need that assistance. And then as attorney later on, whether we prosecute in our office or the district attorney prosecutes misdemeanors and felonies that occur in our city, my office prosecutes municipal code violations. Whoever is prosecuted, we need those witnesses and victims later on to be witnesses in court. That's the way the system works. Fortunately, it's time-consuming, it's troublesome for all of us, but by the showing I'm seeing tonight, there seems to be a lot of people who are saying enough's enough, and those are the kind of things that we need all of us to step up and do. So with that, if council wishes, I will bring back for first reading at the next meeting an aggressive solicitation ordinance that would prohibit aggressive solicitation in areas that are open to the public. We can even do it on private property when it's aggressive, and I already described some of the things that would prevent. But I will have a full ordinance for the council at the next meeting if you wish me to move in that direction. But I can assure council and those listening that the city attorney's office, we have done what we believe we can within the law. As Chief mentioned, we did recently get a couple of restraining orders against some individuals from the library. We've gotten some in the past also, but in the last 4 months we've gotten 2 new ones. But just to give an idea of what that took as far as time goes, and I don't say this to ask for sympathy or anything like that, but just to give the facts and so people understand. I mean, the paperwork alone just to get the filing in court took us about a full day of attorney time to do that. We then had, I think on one we had 3 different court appearances. The other one I believe we had 4. Each one the entire morning from 8:30 a.m. until noon. We were in court on those. Luckily on both of those we had employees who actually observed the behavior, so they were our victims. They had to come into court and sit there each one of those days also for the full half days to be able to finally get the court to hear it and the judge issue the restraining order. That's for 2 different cases. That's how long it took for each one. So these are very time-consuming, difficult things to do. And again, not asking for sympathy, but just to understand what it does take. That's why we need to have good cases to be able to go with. Over the years I've had different people come to me, and especially in the library, ask for different people restraining order about certain things. But I've asked for all the facts, and after a while I said, no, I don't think we have enough yet, and that frustrates them at times. And I understand that, but I also have to make them understand that because of the amount of time expended to try to get it, I want to make sure that we get to court and get one that sticks. We don't want to go through all that effort and then have a judge say no at the end. That's not enough. I want to make sure we have those good cases when we go. And so those are things we have to do from our end. We are certainly not trying to duck anything, but there are certain requirements that the courts hold us up to. And as a public entity, especially, and public buildings, the standard is much higher. It's very difficult for us to ban someone from a public building, from a public park. That is very difficult. The courts don't do that unless in extreme circumstances. We have to have really good facts to be able to do that. It's hard sometimes to explain to someone, especially in a library, that person who's sitting there making all that noise, or sometimes it's you get a lot of complaints to someone with an odor about them that they don't like sitting there trying to read next to them. Unfortunately, being public buildings, it is extremely difficult for us to try to get any kind of order that prevent that person from utilizing those facilities. We're governed by case law, and although we can all disagree with it, it's unfortunate a lot of these cases, especially coming out of the federal courts, are not very favorable to the position of trying to just simply abolish homelessness. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen by arrest. It certainly creates, causes, or needs much longer term and other solutions than arrest.
So, Madam Mayor and Council, that concludes the staff presentation on this issue. As you can see, we have long been engaged in this issue. While we've accomplished quite a bit, it's obviously not enough, as evidence of the audience here and the information we're hearing from the community.